Welcome to the Back to Brick Property Podcast. I'm your host, David Lamb. On this podcast, we'll be stripping property investors and business people alike back to brick to find out how their journey can help you on your journey.
This podcast is brought to you by Orange Sales and Lettings. If you know someone that is looking to sell or let a home, please get in touch. Referral fees are available. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to the Back to Brick Property Show. I'm your host, David Lamb. Today's show is sponsored by Orange Sales and Lettings. Today we have Lewis Dawson on the show. Lewis, thanks for coming on. How are you doing?
I'm really well, thanks very much, mate. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Appreciate your time. I know I've seen from your socials, you're an absolute social media machine. So I know how busy you are on there, mate. So first of all, I just want to congratulate you on the new arrival, which and we're not talking property. So how's that been?
It's been an experience.
Is it your first one?
He's my first blood child. We've got a 6-year-old who just turned 6 on the weekend, but it's the first time with the sleepless nights and changing the nappies at 3 in the morning and feeding him. So yeah, it's been fun. It's definitely been an adaptation.
You'll have to get that on your Instagram.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time even more then, mate, if that's how your life is currently. But so I have to say, you're one of the most consistent social media sort of posters I've seen out there, and your content is excellent. I'm not just saying that because you're here. It's really, really engaging.
Appreciate that.
But today, so it's clear what you're doing today, but I want to delve back into sort of your history and find out what brought you here today. So where did life begin for you?
In Norwich. So I grew up in Norfolk in Norwich. Always been in around sort of the property space with my dad being a brickie.
Oh, right, okay.
So ever since I was a kid, he was always building things out in the yard or buying rundown houses, doing them up and selling them. We end up in a barn in the countryside when I was like 4 years old. And I just had the love for sort of building and construction from there. And I went into marine engineering. So when I left school, I done a marine engineering apprenticeship on a boatyard. We used to build yachts for super wealthy people, which was good fun. But I always knew that getting my hands dirty and being on my hands and knees all the time, working kind of wasn't for me long term. And then I done a 3-year apprenticeship, qualified in it, went to uni and, part-time alongside the job, and realized that I wanted to kind of go and see the world. So me and my mate decided to travel. So when I was 20, we left the UK to go to India.
Well, okay.
We flew to India, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, done 6 months around Asia, and it really opened my eyes to like how big the world was, and being back in little Norwich where you get one bus a day to the city was kind of a million miles away. So when I was over there, I didn't really want to come home. So I decided to go to Australia. And the great thing about the skills I'd learned from construction and getting my hands dirty is I didn't ever struggle for work. So I picked up jobs really, really easily, and I was getting paid mega money, I get $50 an hour sort of to go and service a yacht for even richer people over there. And that was kind of my life for the next 2.5 years. Spent 2.5 years over in Southeast Asia and Australia. Came back every year for holidays and parties. And I was the kind of guy growing up that if there was a party, I was always there. If there was a holiday, I was always there. I was always the guy that you could rely on going to anything. So my friends all went interrailing. So I flew home, went interrailing for 3 weeks. Flew back to Australia. The year later, they all went to Leeds Festival, so I flew back just for Leeds Festival.
Really? Wow.
And then I kind of missed the culture. I missed the football culture. I missed the pub environment. I missed the lads. So the second time I came back, I was offered sponsorship to stay there. Had a house, had a company car, had a company phone, had a really good life set up there. But something didn't quite feel right, and I'm a big believer in going with your gut. So I ended up putting my CV on Total Jobs and seeing what came up. I got headhunted for a bunch of sales jobs, and I went to an office for a meeting. I met a guy called Mo. He was like 25 years old. Nice watch on his wrist, nice shoes on, nice suit on. Looked like he made some good money, and he was only a few years older than me. So I ended up sort of going down the path of learning what he was doing. Next day, I was out knocking doors for a charity.
Right.
So it was a real big contrast. I didn't think that was going to be what I was going to be doing, but I believed in the vision of sort of progression to a management level and how you could sort of move up through the ranks. And I had a lot of confidence in myself. So I basically didn't take the flight back to Australia to do door-to-door sales in Norfolk and Norwich for a charity, which was amazing because I love being in the hot country to come back to the UK in the winter. And I just thrived in it, to be honest. I love the sales. I love the atmosphere. I love the team environment. And I progressed so fast to like a management level. And the whole idea of the business was if you progress to a leader, you can manage a team. If you progress to assistant manager, you can manage a larger team. And if you progress to a management level, you can run your own company doing it. And I sort of done that in a 46-week period. Moved from Norwich to Essex, Essex to Sheffield, Sheffield back to Essex, then up to Middlesbrough, which is why I'm up here now. Nice. And I kind of opened up offices in different places. So one in Middlesbrough, then I moved to Newcastle. And that's kind of me pre-property. So that's sort of what I've done.
All those moves, Essex, Middlesbrough, Newcastle, etc., they were for that charity, the same company?
Yeah, so we work for different clients. So to start with, it was charities. We worked for 11 different charities, from RNIB to deaf children to cats and dogs. We've done every charity you can think of for different clients. But then when I started expanding to different cities, we got approached by a company called Money Expert, which is obviously a comparison site. So we were selling broadband, energy, obviously door-to-door and event sales. So that's what then took me from Essex to Sheffield to Middlesbrough to Newcastle, because they wanted branches up north. And again, I was such a yes that I would always go, don't even know where Middlesbrough is, but sign me up, you know. Yeah. So yeah, that's how I got there.
So it's kind of, to summarise, when you go back and break that down, it's probably the best intro to life if you're going to do what you do now. So you're on construction from a very early age, so you got the bug there. Then you were thrust into a yacht sort of environment, so you're surrounded by money. You can see what success brings you. I'm sure that made you a lot more motivated, etc.
100%, yeah.
And then from there, you've been thrust into a sales environment, which, as we know, in any business in the world, no matter what you do, you're a salesman.
Yeah.
So to break those things down and see where you are now, it was ideal, really.
Yeah, when I tell people that, a lot of the time people don't realise how much you've done in such a short period of time. But I think the biggest cheat, you know, and obviously I like quotes, but I think getting out of your hometown in like your 20s or even probably your 30s now could be a massive game changer, because, you know, I don't know if you have the same situation where you've got friends that they go to the local pub, they date the girl from the local village, they don't very often go to a big city, you know, and their kids just grow up in that environment. And to be honest, I don't feel like you really get everything out of life unless you go to these different cities and these different countries, and especially living somewhere else where you're away from a lot of distractions. Because I was a massive yes. All my friends would drag me into parties and that sort of lifestyle, which I loved. But I think the biggest thing that allowed me to, I suppose, propel myself was I wasn't getting offered to go to the party every Friday night or Saturday night or Sunday night when I was meant to be at work the next day. So I kind of got away from that. And I think that's the biggest thing that allowed me to propel my career.
Completely agree with that. And our stories are very similar, because I went back in my late 20s, sort of 27, 28. I ended up in Australia for 7 years. Oh, wow. Excuse me, ended up staying there 7 years. And it was, you nailed it. I was always a yes man. I was the first person that I'd get invited to a party because they knew I'd be there. I never missed anything. And then same as you, I was over there, I had no friends. I was in an environment where I'd very rarely go out because my friend circle was so small. I was working offshore as well, so missed a lot of weekends offshore. Yeah. And that's how my career really, really propelled as well. So very, very similar, mate, yeah.
What do you think of Australia?
I loved it. I don't miss it at all.
No, same, yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I loved it while I was there. I earned very good money, and that's how I got into property, because I was putting every penny I was earning over there into UK property. Okay. So it sort of gave me the foot up to I needed to get started with the property game over here. People thought I was mad to come back to Teesside from Australia. I'm sure you got the same comments.
100%, yeah.
And people still ask me now why did we come back? Well, same as you. There's more. It's a faster pace over here. Work is more of a priority here. Australians, and there's nothing wrong with this, but it just doesn't suit my life. Their sort of work is well down the priority list, isn't it? Which is great in a lot of ways, and it's great to experience, I think. But if you're ambitious, there was just something missing over there. Yeah. My drive wasn't well placed in Australia.
No, I couldn't agree more. They live for the weekends, don't they? Which we do too, but I feel like you go 100% here for the weekends. There, you kind of just drift through the week to get to the weekend, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. And some of my friends are doing really well in the property world in Australia now. But I just found it easier to get into property over here. Yeah. Which is probably my knowledge base. But yeah, I'm going back at Christmas. I've got family over. My two sisters followed me over there, and then I buggered off. Nothing to do with my sisters. But I'm back there this Christmas to catch up with the family.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
Whereabouts?
In Perth.
Perth. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's where I end up actually.
Did you?
Yeah, I met a few lads over in Thailand, and they're like, "Oh, do you want to come and crash on our sofa?" I was like, "Yeah, no worries." So we ended up moving to Perth just for that reason, because they were like, "Well, we met them there.
Brilliant.
No idea which way to go."
Yeah. So where did you base yourself in Perth?
Fremantle.
That's where I was. Yeah.
For about 6 weeks, and then I moved to Coburn.
Yeah, Coburn. Not far. I started off in Coburn.
Coast. Did you?
And then ended up in Fremantle. Yeah.
Yeah. So I worked between Hillary's Harbour. That was where I'd done a lot of
Beautiful.
the work.
Yeah.
Down at Fremantle, and that's where kind of a lot of the yachts I was working on were. But it's funny what you said there about having the ambition, and it was quite funny because I vowed never to be one of them rich people because they were really stuck up.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
No, excuse my French, but arseholes. You know, like they'd come on the yacht and you'd be building them this dream yacht that they'd sort of designed, and you'd literally be looked at like shit on their shoe and walked all over and picked up on the smallest possible thing if you'd made a mark on something. The house, and it's like building a house, you know. It's like 60-second makeover. Like a week before finishing, it could look like an absolute state, and then be perfection at the end.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the things. My two ambitions were never be that person that like looks down on the janitor or the CEO, but also go back and buy one of them yachts eventually.
Right.
I don't think I'd buy one of them ones now, seeing how they were built. I don't think I'd buy them anymore.
It's like a new build house, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I'd
it
never
is.
buy a new build house.
And I think it's the entrepreneur in me. I'm like, I want to get a good return on my money. So why would I buy that new? You know, I can probably get one a few years older.
Yeah.
And get a good return on it, you know?
Yeah, it's that delayed gratification, isn't it?
100%.
That we all live by in our game. But we've been talking about to a few of my friends lately. It's a bit of a trap, delayed gratification.
Yeah.
I've lived within this delayed gratification bubble for 22 years now, investing in property.
Yeah.
I need to maybe step out of it a little bit, but it's so ingrained in me.
Yeah. I'm not a big spender, but then I always wanted a Range Rover. So like I've had it now 2 years, I think, come in February. And I had a guy start for me who ran his own successful business for 20 years and then split with his wife and sold the company to her. A big company up in Newcastle called Foxy Hair Extensions.
All right, okay.
I don't think you'll have heard of it now.
Thankfully, I haven't.
He was bald as well, funny enough. And he loved his Ranges. And I remember the first day he started for me, he said, "Look, your dream's car's a Range, let's go and get a Range." And I was like, I was not that way inclined at all, but we walked into the Range Rover stop and I came out with one, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And it was like the top of the range autobiography. And now looking back, I'm like, I look at it on my drive and I'm like, that's like more than most of the houses we sell in the northeast of England on the starting price. And I'm like, I could have.
But you still love it though.
I love it, yeah. And then we got the Tesla. You know, got the Tesla on the company, and now I'm like, do I really need the Range?
Yeah.
Because I'm always in the Tesla. Mrs. doesn't really like driving it because it's too big. But I'm the same. I don't really treat myself. I think the Range Rover is kind of the biggest thing I've ever bought since, I'd say, having a bit more money. Mm-hmm. And then the biggest thing I like is experiences. So up until Abby got pregnant last year, we would go away every 12 weeks. And that's kind of my splurge, if that makes sense. Because I'd rather go to I don't like to say I'm kind of better than anyone else, but I do like to go into 4 or 5 star hotels because I don't really believe in going on holiday to live somewhere worse than your own house.
Exactly.
What's the point?
I totally agree with that, yeah.
So holidays and experiences is kind of the best thing.
Yeah, I'm very much the same. Experiences over superficial items all day long, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been through that. So to your sales company, you go around the country, you come to the northeast, you're opening offices in Middlesbrough, Newcastle, then what?
I was in a bit of a trap. So we worked for a larger corporation. And as much as it was your own business, they kind of controlled what you'd done. Like you had a secretary on your bank and so on and so forth, and you couldn't really spend your money the way you wanted to. And I was a big believer in, the only reason why I got into the door-to-door sales was to save enough money to buy houses. That was the only reason.
And where did that come from? Sorry to stop you. Where did that come from, Lewis? Why was it to buy houses?
I saw my dad graft from the age of 15 to 70 in bricklaying. And I know he was quite asset rich, but he was time poor and going to work until he passed, you know. So I wanted to do the same thing, but in a smarter way. So I thought there must be a way that you can kind of buy more houses, but also leverage that. I love sales. So when I was a kid, I used to cut lawns and wash cars and sell sweets, and I'd always go and do extra jobs to make extra cash, and I'd get my late mates on board. So I've got this lawn you can go and cut for £3, and then I would charge £5. Yeah. You know, I was always quite good at leveraging. So I thought if I bought a few houses, And just from educating myself through books and social media and different things like that, I was like, well, if I buy a house and someone moves in and pays more than what the mortgage is, I'm going to make money. So I thought my goal was save £100,000, leave the door-to-door sales world, and then buy 2 or 3 houses. And I thought I'd be set because I didn't know anything about refinancing and putting money in and, you know, doing it up and whatever. I just thought that was the case. So I bought a little flat in Choppington up in Northumberland, and I got it really cheap. I got it for 18.5 grand.
Oh, wow.
And that was pre-pandemic. But when they said to me, I was taking these 18.5 grand out of my account, they said to me, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm buying a house. They're like, well, you can't do that. I'm like, what do you mean? It's my company. So I had to ask my secretary. My owners were over in America at the time. So if I want someone, I get it. So I knew they were 5 hours behind us. So I took it out at 9 a.m. UK time. So by the time they woke up, the money was gone. You know what I mean? And they didn't really have the control, but they just advise you. They advise you not to. I think I ended up lying and saying it was for a car because they were more interested in me buying a car than they were a house.
Right, okay.
Because the house gives you money to be able to get out of that industry. A car's a liability, right?
Of course.
So I ended up having to lie to my secretary and say, like, I'm buying a car. I need to buy it right now. And that's the only way I got away with it. And then I bought that. It was a silly move, to be honest, because obviously there's no stamp duty. And then I was with a girlfriend at the time and we wanted to buy a bigger house. I bought like a £200,000 house in North Seaton in Ashington, paid stamp duty, realised I'd made a mistake because I could have avoided that 6 grand stamp duty if I'd bought that house first. But then I had rent coming in from the flat. I didn't end up moving in the house because in conveyancing, I broke up with the girl I was with. Right. So I rented it straight out. And then I bought another house in Newcastle. And when I bought them 3 houses, I was like, I don't really need this door-to-door sales job anymore. But I like the freedom of it was mine and I couldn't be told not to do anything with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I didn't leave at that time because I wanted to replace my income to be able to leave because I was making good money. I was making 1,500 to 3 grand a week. You know, it was really, really good money, but I was splurging it all and spending it all. So I actually just got sent a video from my marketing girl. She sent me this video of her, a lady being retired by a boss in property. And she said, oh, can you help me do this sort of thing as a joke? I watched it, got inspired by it, went to a pound course, and I just loved the environment again. I got all hyped up about the sales side of things. A lot of people obviously say good things and bad things about these types of events, but if I wouldn't have been in the room, I wouldn't be here today. So I was the guy that ran straight to the back of the room. I was going to pay 10 grand for the course, let alone 2. I paid the 2 grand. My admin at the time, who wasn't the marketing girl, I ended up paying for her to join the academy as well. Because I was like, I don't want to do this alone. I want to bring some people up with me. So I paid like £20,000 in mentorship for me and her. And I said, look, I'll guarantee your salary. You come along with me. And then the next week when we started the deal sourcing, I was like, I can make 10 grand a month doing this just as easy. I can do door-to-door sales. So I said to my assistant manager, you run it. Good luck. You go and attack it. I'm going to go and give this a stab. Had a little bit of money in the bank left from that 95 grand. It went really quickly. Didn't sell a single deal.
Really?
I had to sit down with my social media girl and my admin and say, look, next month there isn't enough money to pay your salaries.
Right.
So there's 2 options. You either go back to work for my assistant manager and carry on doing what you were doing there, or this is the last month I'm going to guarantee your salary because there's £900 in the bank. And they both cried. And then we killed it. Literally the next week we sold like 6 deals.
Right.
And I think it was the backs against the wall sort of thing. Like she had nowhere else to turn. Like she was either going to go back to a job she only liked doing because I was the manager, and my social media girl was going to go back to doing social media for the door-to-door sales world, or we'd step up and sell some deals. And I think we'd done like 14.5 grand in like them next 7 days.
Oh, yeah. And they were all fresh. They weren't in the pipeline anyway. They were all fresh
all
deals.
Fresh deals.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Like you say, when your back's against the wall, what you can achieve.
It was mad. It was mad. And I think it was what they needed because they had that comfort blanket. I wasn't taking a salary, but they were. So they were getting paid a certain amount every month anyway. That it didn't really make a difference if we won or lost. And that was the difference, I think, when I sat down honestly and said, look, there is no more money. We have to go and attack it. And I'm a big believer things happen for a reason. So maybe they were in the pipeline, but we just hadn't really dug deep enough for them, if that makes sense. And that's kind of how I transitioned out of the door sales into the property space, really.
Well, okay. So the course you went on, was that a deal sourcing course specifically?
Yeah, so it was...
Because you already had 3 properties yourself when you went on the course.
Yeah, I didn't know really anything about it. I went on the course thinking, okay, maybe I'll learn a little bit more about property and I'll be able to buy more of these rental houses. And then I realized that the flat I bought, I should sell because it had gone up quite a lot of money. So the next month I put it on an auction and I made about 12 grand for that. I actually had to reduce the amount of money I made on it because of capital gains tax. So I had to bring it down to like 10.8, I think it was at the time, just so I didn't pay any capital gains tax. Then my house in North Seaton, I realized that it was kind of underpriced. So I really bumped the rent up on it because it's a really luxury house in that area. So I managed to make some really good profit on that. I went from making £400 a month net profit to 800 just by increasing the rent on the property and getting much better tenants in. And then the house I was living in Newcastle, I'd done an accidental HMO. I didn't know I'd done it. But when in the game I was in door-to-door sales, you kind of live with your reps. That's just how it was. So a lot of my reps were between 18 and 25. And I had 3 lads living with me. And it was a 3-bed house, which I'd converted the living room into a bedroom. Brilliant. Just unofficially. So when I went on this deal sourcing course and they started talking about HMO and BRR and stuff, I was like, well, I've done this. I changed the kitchen, changed the bathroom, turned it into a 4-bed HMO. And I was just sitting on a lot of equity. So then I started the refinance process. And that property I ended up was my first all money out deal, accidentally.
Brilliant.
You know, I was living in it for free, making £1,000 a month from the boys living there with me, and then refinanced it, pulled all my money out plus 3 grand. And I'd already done a loan. So I'd borrowed that £30,000 off my sister on a 10% interest to buy that house originally. So it was like all money out, none of my own money, paid the interest back. And that was kind of like an eye opener for me because I was like, wow, this is actually, I just thought that was just something I'd accidentally learned. But when someone said at the front of the stage, like, that's how you do it, I was like, shit, I could actually do this. Yeah. So it was a deal sourcing course, but they talked about everything in property. You know, they sort of went over it. But then they sold you the deal sourcing 4-day course at the back end of it, you know.
And you obviously, like you said, that the 4-day course you did on deal source, it's been an absolute game changer for you then?
Yeah, the 4-day course, if I'm honest, I think a lot of people don't do it right. And I think a lot of people come off the back of a 4-day course and think they can sell deals to rich people, you know, and they'll make a lot of money doing it. And they don't really learn everything they need to know. I think these courses are good for teaching you 75%, but they don't teach you the 25% that makes the difference. Yeah. Because I started on this academy with 100, 200 people, which joined the weekend I was there. And I probably know less than 10 now that are still in property because a lot of them come off the back of the courses and think, oh, I can sell. I've got this reputation now. But a lot of people watch you, don't they? They sit and watch you for a year or 2 years and 3 years. And I still get clients call me now and say, oh, I've been watching you for 3 years on Instagram. I'm now ready to invest. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, like people have watched you to make sure that you're not one of these flyby people. Yeah. You know?
But it's your online TV, isn't it?
It is.
Social media it's your reputation. It's everything. Yeah. It gives you credibility. So, what were the early challenges in those days when you stepped from being an accidental HMO landlord and you had 3 properties? You've done this deal sourcing course. What were the main challenges in becoming a sourcer?
Well, there's 2 main challenges in sourcing all the time. It's having investors and having deals. Yeah. So
which one did you find first?
I fortunately really, really pushed social media, and it's because of my door-to-door sales space. I wasn't allowed to have my face on my last company in the door-to-door sales space. So when I started property, I was like, I want to put my face all over it. It was kind of an ego thing. And I'm so glad I'd done it because every day I committed to doing a post. So every single day without fail, if you look through my social media for the last 3 years, it's been a post. Yep. And a lot of my mentees say to me, like, you know, should I start social media? I'm like, don't start it unless you're going to do it every day. Well, what about weekly? What's the point? You know, I mean, people need to see it on their feed every single day to see that you're consistent. Yeah. So repeat the question. Sorry.
So you became a sourcer.
What was the difficulties?
Very quickly. What were the main challenges? Because I speak to so many sources and they say, oh, you should find the deal first and the investors will come. And others say, find the investors, the deals will come. You can search for property to that specific criteria that the investor's given you.
Yeah. I think
they both, I'm not a sourcer, but they both seem as important as each other. It's just interesting to get your view on it.
So I kind of leveraged what I had. So in the academy, I paid a lot of money to join it. So I was in every single one of the academy WhatsApp chats. even though I was only allowed in one, I had someone in all of the chats. So I had access to about 1,000 people in the chats. I constantly posted every single lead or Instagram post or TikTok or whatever in all them channels. So everyone saw my face all the time. I created a mailing list immediately through MailChimp. It was free at the time. So I was constantly capturing contacts. And I went down the route of being, if I could be the guy or the team at the time that if people found the deal, they could say, hey, Lewis, do you have an investor for this? I knew I would do well because the deals would come eventually, like speaking to agents and vendors and stuff up here in the Northeast. Once people know what I do, and they'll say, oh, I've got this house, do you want to buy it? Yeah. So I became the investor side, and then the academy just flooded me with deals. So we were advertising probably 30 deals a week. We couldn't sell hardly anything. I had no investors. I had like 100 people on the list.
But it still looks the part, doesn't it?
But
when you
we were putting a social media post out every day, posting 30 deals a week out there, selling one a month, and making no money.
Nobody knows that, though.
No one knew that. So we just looked like the guys that everyone bring the deals to. Everyone would come, and if they wanted a deal, they would come to us. And then again, like I said, about 8 weeks later, when it all came together after that, where
I love that.
The deals we'd found, the investors actually wanted to buy them, and they put the money in the bank, and we were like, Jesus, this actually works. Yeah. So the most difficult challenge, I think, is everyone tries to do everything. Sourcing, rent to rent, their own HMO portfolio, their own portfolio, and they try and do like 5 or 6 things at once, and you can't get good at that. So I just focused on, I put my portfolio to the background. When I had the portfolio, I felt quite big and quite strong, and then went to the academy, and I was like, I got 3 houses. Yeah. Like, it's not even covering my bills. Yeah.
It was probably three more than most of that.
It was 3 more than most, but also it was like, wasn't making me a decent amount of money. So I was like, I need to replace this 10 grand a month as fast as possible.
It's slow money, isn't it? It's not fast money.
Yeah. And I kind of just really quickly learned that you can't do everything. So just focus on the one thing. Mm-hmm. And there's all these people around me trying to do absolutely everything, like find the deals and find the investor and do rent to rent and buy their own portfolio. And I think the biggest challenge is staying focused on that, because you get a call in property all the time. So what about this opportunity? What about this opportunity? Like, I've had a hand-built CRM system built. And the guy that owns it, he constantly calls me and says, I've got this property. And I'm like, I want to say yes because I want to do it, but I'm like, no, stay focused, because if not, you'll just get drawn away from
that must be so
what
difficult.
You're doing.
The amount of deals that are coming across your desk these days.
Yeah.
Have you maintained that then? Have you still just got those 3 properties?
No. Right. So
303 now.
No, I wish. But no, I've got. Well, I'm starting to. I grew to like 11 companies. We grew everything. So sourcing, building company, project management, rent-to-rent business, staging business, lettings business, mentoring business, my own development business. I got like 11 for some reason on Company's House at one point when they were like £12 a company. I don't know why. I just thought I'll just buy loads. And I've started drawing it all back now. But my own developments have sort of took a bit of a back burner. I've got a large development in the Lake District with 2 business partners where it's gone on a lot longer than I thought it was. Development's not for the faint-hearted. No. But it was originally a post office, a shop, a cottage, a 3-bed apartment, and then some living quarters at the back and a garage and stuff. And we're now coming up to 2 years in that. We converted the shop to reinstate it. We renovated the cottage, put that on Airbnb. We renovated a 3-bed apartment and sold that. We've got the garage at the back, which we've got like fenced off, and we're ideally going to build a 2-bed bungalow on there or sell it with planning. We've got like a 3-bed disabled apartment at the back, which we're going to give to a disabled charity. We've got a 1-bed apartment we're about to start. We're getting the same thing, give it to the disabled charity. Yeah. So that's kind of one arm of my portfolio, which, I'm not going to lie, my business partners kind of run and manage that for me. I'm very hands-off in it, but I provided quite a lot of finance towards it. And then we have the rent-to-rent business. So we have, I think, 14 rent-to-rents right now, where 3 of them are down in Essex and 11 of them up here in the Northeast. Then we have the sourcing team, which will obviously source the properties for, project manage the builds, provide one of our build teams to go in and build them. One of the 3 build teams we use. Then we have the furniture leg at the end, which can furnish and stage the property. And then we've just launched the lettings. Yeah. So my portfolio is, I bought a house for my mum, which is like a BRR. She came out of a breakup and she couldn't afford to buy somewhere or rent anywhere. So I was like, well, let's buy it. She found it. That was kind of a deal which we done. I sold the flat. I bought another couple. Some of them are corporate letted to my rent-to-rent business on Airbnb. Some of them are just buy-to-lets. Some of them are HMOs. And then we have 6 HMOs as well, which 3 professional and 3 student. But they're all kind of like, I don't see them as my own because I kind of treat all my investors as my own as well, because we either do everything end-to-end on them, or we end up taking them on as a corporate let or furnishing them or doing the lettings. So like, you know, yourself having an agency, your clients' properties become yours anyway.
Of course they do, yeah.
And that's kind of a goal for me, probably 2025. I'd like to start buying more myself and having more of, I suppose, passive income from my own properties rather than all this active income coming in.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And you seem to be very much the face of the business. You're obviously, with your sales background, you communicate very well on social media, etc. Is that the part of the job that you enjoy the most?
Yes and no. How do I answer this? That was the goal. The goal was to become the face and be the brand. But I learned very quickly I didn't want it to be Lewis. I wanted it to be platinum, because I want eventually to be able to either dilute my shares and grow this company massive and kind of step away a little bit, or maybe sell it 10, 20, 30 years time. I didn't want to be tied to the business. And I'm a big believer of, like, you know, if you run a small company, 9 times out of 10, you're the slave to the business and you end up working every hour that God sends. But I've made a big transition since my little one Archie came around to be more present on the weekends for my kids. You know, it's my son's 6th birthday on the weekend, so we went Ninja Warrior on Saturday and he had a trampoline party on Sunday, and on the 30th we go away for 7 nights to Cyprus, and I'll leave my work phone at home, you know. And so I'm making a big transition now of putting the right pillars in place and the right staff in place to not have to answer the phone on a Monday morning and not have to be there Friday afternoon and in between. But it did go for a big transition period last year when we grew the business really fast. I put team players in place. They weren't right. And then pegs started to fall over. And it became a really difficult time where the company lost some money. I was dragged back into it, and I vowed that wasn't going to happen again. But the main reason why that happened is my old man got cancer, unfortunately. So back in the pandemic, he got given terminal cancer. He got told he had. And that was a big eye-opener for me, because I was only going home 3 times a year at the time. So I said to myself, like, if he lives 5 more years, I'm only going to see him 15 times. Yeah. I was like, that's not happening. So I made a big decision to go home every month. And Norwich, I'm not sure if you've been to Norwich. It's awful driving there. It's like 6 hours or sometimes 8 hours. Or
my family are going this weekend, actually, from Middlesbrough away to Norwich. Yeah, I've never been myself.
It's not the best drive. But I committed to going every single month, because I was like, well, if he lives 5 years, 12 times a year, it's a lot more. And I grew up with my dad. So my mum and dad split up when I was 12, so I always lived with my dad. So, and he was the biggest driver for me doing this. So that combination with some of my team falling off ended up meaning I was not able to be in the business where I wanted to be, but also the company ended up losing money. So I was like, I realized at the time that everyone has a finite amount of time. I want to be there for my kids more and be there for my missus more. So I need to either not chase the money as much and just be the guy of everything, or put the right pillars in place to allow the money to keep coming in, but not have to be there every day. And
so what's the split, do you think, at the moment, as you say today, working in your business and working on your business?
90-10. So I'm on the business 90% of the time.
That's healthy. That's very healthy.
Yeah, and in the business 10% of the time. And that, if you'd asked me that a month ago, it'd have probably been 50-50.
Yeah, it's a lot higher than I expected, to be honest.
Yeah, because I'm a big believer in coaches and mentors. I had a mentor that I worked with in Dubai. Got introduced to him by a good friend of mine in the Northwest, and she grew up with him. She's a successful football freestyler. And she said to me, you know, you should try working with this guy, Will. And his name is William Brown. He's huge on social media now, and he's grown a massive mentor in business, and just sold a business to a private equity firm for like 3.4 million. And he's super successful. And he helped my business go from just me to probably 6 figures a month.
Brilliant.
And then when it kind of, the team fell apart a little bit, I wasn't as committed to using him as a mentor, and I pulled away a little bit, and I started going back with him again, and he helped me get the stability again. But my time with him has kind of ended. The reason for that is he's got a different lifestyle to what I want. So he lives in Dubai. He's got, that sort of lifestyle. I've got a fiance and 2 boys and a dog and a house in Elm Park. So it's very, very different. So I came about this mentor actually just very randomly. I was at a networking event, one of my good friends and business partners, Martin and Sarah, in Birmingham. And there was this charity holiday being given away where it was for homeless people in Birmingham and West Midlands. And it was like you win a 5-day trip to this luxury villa in Italy. My missus was ready to pop at the time. And I started bidding. Got to 1,850 quid. And I was like, won it. I couldn't believe it. I won it. Right. But again, I'm a big believer of things happen for a reason. So after that, I met the guy who owns the luxury villas and his business partner. And we had a call a few weeks later. And I told him and her what I want to achieve and what I want to do. And this lady, she's worked for some really big companies. She worked for one of the Dragons on Dragon's Den for like 10 years. And I said, look, I want to achieve X. Can you help me? And they said yes. And she started consulting for my business back in September. So when I took some time off for my little one being born, she was in my business kind of speaking to my team and sort of coordinating things. And then this month she's come closer into the business, became more of an operations manager, and we've put in key players to help. And I've got a plan with her to work until the end of the year to completely remove myself from the business. Brilliant. And she's expensive, a lot of money. Like if I used to tell people how much I used to spend on my first mentor and they used to think I was crazy. This is double, but she's been there and done that. Like if you go to the gym, I always use a PT because I'm not skilled at knowing what I need to do to get to the better level. So I'm a big believer in paying someone who's been there and done that to achieve what you want to achieve.
100%. Massive believer in that as well. If you want to achieve something in your life and you've found someone that's already achieved that exact goal or pretty damn near close to what you want to achieve, why would you not pay them to hold your hand and take you there? Yeah. Because their fee, it is expensive. I've got a mentor and it's on a monthly basis, it's bloody expensive. Yeah. But the amount of money I'm now making because of his input dwarfs it like 30, 40 times. So, it's short-term pain for long-term gain, isn't it?
And also, you can find out really quickly if it doesn't work. Yeah. So I never commit to anything more than like a monthly thing, because in a month you can see if that mentor is going to help you or not. So it's like going to the casino and putting money on black. Like if you lose that first time, I would walk away. Some people just keep going. But same thing with the mentor. Like if I commit to a month and it doesn't work, I've only lost a month's worth of, but if I don't try, I'll never know. Yep. But then after that first month, you see what value someone brings, and then you can keep going on black again, if that makes sense.
100%. It's interesting that she's actually working within your business then. Yeah. I know circumstances dictated that initially, but she's actually, my mentor oversees my business and says, advises on do this. Well, when I did this 10 years ago, it worked out like this. Yeah. She's very much in the business, speaking to your staff, sort of directing traffic.
The reason for that is we have a bigger plan for me to be involved in some of this European houses. Right. I've always had a big passion. I wanted 5 houses in 5 different countries. That was the plan. Right. And this company is in Spain and Italy and different places. And I'm like, well, that's the gateway to me to get there. And I think the vision that the owner has and she has is free me up enough to be able to explore this European market. Like the day she started with me, she moved to Spain. Her and her husband and her dog were driving to Spain the day she started with me. I'm like, well, that's the freedom I want to have. Yeah. And then the owner of the company is in Italy in one of the luxury villas at the moment. So I don't think that was the plan. I was paying her a lot less money to consult. And then it just came about that she was like, well, I'll commit to coming into the business for 3 months as a helicopter, pulling you out. Yeah. Putting the right people in place. And then in January, when you're a lot freer, we can kind of explore these options for the European market, which is what I want to really do.
Superb. So what does that look like in the European market? What will you do over there? Will you do your own developments or will you be sourcing international property?
So it's a very similar model in terms of you buy rundown houses. So obviously I've kind of made my name on buying rundown houses, turning them into service accommodation or HMO or buy-to-lets. And it's the same thing in Italy and Spain. So what they do at the moment is they buy rundown houses in Italy and they turn them into luxury villas. With them luxury villas, you then have investors that invest into the luxury villas as kind of a partnership and a fractional ownership. So each person owns a fraction of that villa and they can come out to it that time of the year. It's a bit like timeshare, but kind of on an opposite scale where I don't know the full ins and outs of it yet, but rather than owning a villa outright, one individual and going there once a year, for a month, you own it with 12 other people and you go a month a year, but then the rest of the year it's being looked after and been paid for. So a bit of a mixture. I would love to own 5 or 6 of these myself. I'd be a shareholder in a house in Italy, a house in Spain, a house in France, a house in this, and have a month in each of them. But also, I've got a large investor list now that I know would be interested in that type of model as well. I have a few houses in Middlesbrough and Stockton and Hartlepool and Darlington and South Shields and Newcastle, and then have a couple in Italy and Spain, different places where you can go and enjoy your hard-earned money, you know.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, sign me up. I'll be interested in that. Yeah,
I don't know enough about it yet, but I'm kind of sold on that myself, and I'm a big believer in I don't sell anything to my investors that I wouldn't buy myself, which is probably the reason why I haven't got a big enough portfolio, because I see it and I'm like, oh, I should buy this, but then I've got 5 investors or 10 investors or 20 investors that want it, and I'm like, okay, you can have it then, if that makes sense. No,
that's good, mate, and that's why you're doing so well. You know, it's and I'm sure you'll continue to do so. So back in the UK, then, what's the current appetite? You know, doing what you do, you've got a 30,000 feet view looking down upon the property market. A bit like myself. Where do you see the main appetite for investors, for buyers now?
It's changed a little bit because I've never really been a big believer in a buy-to-let model, because I don't see the point in spending £25,000, £30,000 for a deposit to make £300 to £400 a month back. But if you add a BRR to that and you pull out some of your cash and you can make it all money out within a few years, it's free money, you know. But I think at the moment, especially, HMO is the biggest thing that is, I think, a bit of a fad at the moment, and I hope it continues, and I'm sure it will for the next 3, 4, 5 years. But I just don't think you can compete with it. Like, we have some HMOs that they're predicted to make £1,000 a month net profit. They're making 2, and I'm like, it's just crazy, because if you put the right measures in place with capping your energy bills and fair use policies and, you know, get the right types of tenants in, you can make way more than you ever probably imagined you would in a HMO, especially with the commercial valuations up here in the Northeast, if you're doing the sort of the 6s and the 7s and the 8s and the 9s and the 10s. But also now with the 4s and 5s, if you do them right in the right areas, you can get investment mortgages, and some of the mortgages are just crazy where you're pulling out quite a lot of capital. So I think HMO is a really good model. A lot of my investors now are international, and I think if they're coming over from different countries to buy them, you know, it's a big eye-opener that we should still buy them here in the UK, you know. So a lot of my investors are Swedish, Norwegian, from Saudi, America, African, them sort of places. And they're buying here, even though their interest rates over there are way higher, even when they buy over here. So I think HMO is kind of the best way to go at the moment. Where the property market's going, it's hard to tell, isn't it? Like 12 months ago, there was this huge spike in interest rates and everyone was panicking, and you know, we had a few of our deals that almost kind of went south, and we managed to spin them around and make them right again. But I think I'm a big believer, if you should have bought property 10 years ago, and if you haven't bought property 10 years ago, buy it today, because you're always going to win.
Exactly.
You know?
There's always going to be something in the news. There's always going to be some negativity flying around to stop you buying. I started buying 20 years ago, and there was negative news all over the shop at the time.
Yeah.
Luckily, I didn't take much notice of it, and I take even less notice of it now. So yeah, you're right. Over time, you know, it's a bad property. You might have a bad property deal, or the environment, the financial environment that you're buying into might not be ideal. But I always say a bad property is like a bad haircut. You know, over time it works itself out, doesn't it? So the appetite for HMOs then, is that professional, or is that mainly students?
I thought it was students until I got into lettings ourselves. When we launched the lettings ourselves about 9-10 weeks ago now, a lot of the student HMO areas we'd bought, I thought they were just going to be students. And we've ended up filling them a lot with professionals, like the likes of City Centre of Middlesbrough, and they're paying a lot more money. And obviously you have to pay the council tax, but it's being counteracted easily by the amount of money they're spending per room. So we would sell them around £105 a week per room for a student HMO in the centre of Middlesbrough, and we're achieving, which is about 400.
Is that ensuite?
Yeah, ensuite rooms. We're now achieving kind of 114, 115 a week.
Right. From professionals.
From professionals, and you're getting the students moving as well, but mostly professionals. And I think I don't like mixing, so I don't like putting students and professionals in the same HMO because I'm not sure if you were a student, but I remember what I was like when I was a student, and I wasn't cared about hygiene or places clean and stuff, and we just have parties all the time, so I don't want professionals living with that. But yeah, there's a lot more professional demand than I thought up here in the Northeast at the moment, mixed with your student terms. Like the January's a big term in Middlesbrough, your July to your September window, but we've just started lettings just at the back end of that, because we'd have last year where a few letting agents were like, we can't fill the rooms in like November and December. I'm like, surely there's people around. We're filling them easy.
Yeah, of course there is. In town and city centres, you'll always fill the rooms.
Yeah, and there's always opportunities. If you can't fill them as a HMO, there's contractors that want to move in and different bits and bobs. So, and I think that a lot of the letting agents, especially the ones I've dealt with down in Teesside, they've got too many people on the books, so they don't need to fill that HMO.
No, that's it.
So they've got enough houses on anyone on the market. That extra one's not really going to break the bank. So as a smaller company starting up, we're hungry for filling the rooms because we don't get paid as a letting agent.
Those people, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's ideal. I think I totally agree with that. I've got HMOs in Sunderland City Centre. It's the same. It's that we've bought them tailored for students, ideally. But there's always professional people looking for HMO rooms now. It's bloody expensive to rent property now, and there's less and less property within the rental market, as you know.
Yeah.
Landlords are leaving the market hand over fist. So HMOs are just going to become more and more attractive as they go, type of thing. So,
and I think if you're a lot of the investors I used to work with, they were very much caught up on the first deal, and they want the first deal to be perfect. But you need to be in this for the long game. Like, your first deal might not be the most lucrative one, but then it gives you the experience to go and buy the bigger one and the bigger one, the better one. And again, it's like anything. If you have 5 or 6, some might perform better, some might perform worse. Yeah. It's like a football team. You have to have 11 players on the pitch. Your standout player might not perform that day, but if the other 10 are playing better, or 8 or 7 or 6 of them, the team is still going to succeed. Yeah. And it's the same thing with property. If you have 5, you've got more chance of winning than if you have 1.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, you've got to play the long game, haven't you? And if you've got one property and the boiler goes, or the tenant stopped paying rent, it's the end of the world, isn't it? But if you've got 20 properties and one tenant stops paying the rent, you barely notice it, do you?
It's annoying. Of course it is.
Of course it is. Yeah.
But yeah, I think
it's just part of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So what does a typical day look like for you at the moment?
I do the school run every morning. So mornings for my missus and my little ones, really. I like to get up and spend some time with Oliver, get him ready, go to school, drop him off. I then go to the gym. So I drop him off at school at sort of 9 o'clock, go to the gym from 9:30 to 10:30, at least 3 times a week with my PT. Come back and I start my day, and I'd say this to my mentees a lot. I'm like 11 till 3 is my day. So I don't really allow calls being booked in before 11. I don't allow calls being booked in before 3. Brilliant. It does happen, but I know that's when I then go pick up Oliver from school. So 11 till 3 is when I really knuckle down and attack my day, and I'm on a lot of calls and a lot of meetings normally. And I like to see the cash flow come in. So I do a lot of the sales side of things. So if an investor's interested in buying a deal, I'm the one calling you. And then 3 o'clock, I'll go get my son from school. 9 times out of 10, we'll come back and we'll have some sort of activity. So like last night was football training, tonight's tennis, Wednesday's off, Thursday swimming, Friday, we normally go and do something with him. And then obviously we've got Archie as well now. So my missus does 90% of the parenting for Archie, because I had to have him for 3 hours yesterday, and I don't know how she does it, if I'm honest.
Yeah, she's 90% in that business.
It is hard, yeah. Honestly, I couldn't do what I do now if I didn't have Abby helping with that Archie, if that makes sense. So that's how my day looks, really, is spend time with the kids in the mornings, spend time with the kids in the evenings. If you ask my missus, I still do work in the evenings, but I don't class it as work. I reply to messages and voice notes and different bits and bobs. I walk the dog in the morning, I walk the dog in the evening, come back to messages during them times. And that's sort of how a general day will look with me now. Yeah,
brilliant. It sounds good. It sounds exactly like your business is serving you rather than you serving your business, which obviously a lot of people fall into. It's very difficult to get out of that.
Yeah.
I've experienced it myself. So last couple of questions, Lewis. I know we'll push for time. I've got a million questions I could ask you. I could talk to you all day about property, but If you could offer one piece of advice to a first-time property investor sat here today, what would that be?
Get educated, because there is a lot of bad courses out there. There is a lot of bad training and courses, and you can spend a lot of money in it, but you can't achieve what you want to achieve long-term if you haven't got the right education. So you have to kind of take the leap and do some of the courses and pay for some mentees and read some books and do some podcasts and, educate yourself, because there's someone out there that's done what you want to do and they've already made the mistakes. And if you could tap into what mistakes they've made and not make them same mistakes, you're going to go so much further. And also it's more fun. It's way more fun. Like I was on the way here this morning, I called my mentor, my coach, and I'm like, this has happened, what do I do? And now she's going away and kind of thinking about the best things to do with that situation. And
Creates
then
like a team environment, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then I can come into this meeting today and just talk and relax and not be thinking about them 5 or 6 things that could go wrong. I'll come out of the meeting, I'll call her and say, what do you think? And she'll tell me the answer. And again, it doesn't stop the mistakes. You still make loads of mistakes, but you bypass a lot of them and you're going to fast track. So for anyone new, I think you have to educate yourself, whether it's through a one-to-one mentor, group training, these large courses that people do, buying online, however you learn. I have to be in the room with people. That's how I have to learn. Yeah, so I like doing either one-to-one mentoring and coaching, because that's how I can really learn, or in the room with people and sort of bouncing around off people's and ideas and stuff. So that is, I know probably a lot of people say it, but, and people will say, oh, because you educate people, you're going to say, get educated. But
yeah, but I completely agree with you.
You have to.
Yeah, I've never seen the value in sitting in a big classroom with 60 people learning about how to do this and that. But one-on-one mentorship has taken me to new levels already. I haven't been doing it that long. That's where I see the main value for me.
Yeah. Just to add to that, sorry for jumping in.
Right.
Some of my investors now pay extra to have me mentor them through their first deal.
Right.
Because we used to have that quite a lot. Like someone would buy a deal and say, oh, you can help me through the whole situation. I'm like, well, I don't help you as much as you think I help you. I'm going to serve you all the services you need.
Yeah.
But some of my investors now pay for my portfolio building mentoring, which is just you buy a bundle of calls and you can have the calls whenever you want. Because when you get to a sticking point and somebody don't know what to do, they can then ask that question and I can give them the specific advice to help through. And them clients are doing way better now than the ones that kind of just go, oh, I'll just pay you and hopefully it'll work. And then someone goes wrong, they're like, well, that's not what you told me was going to happen. It's like, it's property, it's business. Like, things are going to go wrong.
Yeah. No, I like that. It's with it being their first deal, if you can hold their hand through it and then say after that, you're on your own type of thing. Especially the international investors, they'll want that service. So if you could start all over again, what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? I wouldn't set up 11 companies. There's a lot of admin. It's a lot of accounting. It's a lot of fees to my accounting teams and books to do and things. What would I do differently? It's a hard question because I feel like everything that I've done is either been a lesson to not do it again, or it's kind of helped me get into the room to do what I'm doing now. So what would I do differently? I always thought deal sourcing was going to be a stopgap, and I thought I'm just going to run it for a while and stop. What I would do differently is I would have committed to it earlier and said this is going to be the stepping stone to everything I build. Because if I didn't do sourcing, I wouldn't have done project management. If I didn't do project management, I wouldn't have done building. If I didn't do building, I wouldn't have done furnishing. If I didn't do furnishing, I wouldn't have done rent to rent. If I didn't do rent to rent, I wouldn't have done lettings. So like all of them have come from that first block. So a lot of people go, oh, I'm just going to source for a little bit, just going to make a little bit of cash and then I'll stop. The biggest thing I would do differently in someone that starting, if they commit to a strategy, commit to it and run with it.
Yeah.
And the first year will be really, really up and down. And it really takes 10 years, I think, to really master any industry. So what I would do differently is not set up with 11 businesses, but also commit to the one and just really go for it like I have in the last probably 2 years.
Brilliant. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you and really enjoy following your journey online. What is the best place for people to reach out? Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram probably at the moment. It's a Platinum Property team. Same on TikTok, same on Facebook. We're making a big push for YouTube now. So again, if you search Lewis Dawson or Platinum Property team on YouTube, you'll have some more long form content come up there.
Brilliant.
LinkedIn, the website, platinumpropertyteam.co.uk. They're probably the best ways to contact us.
Superb. Mate, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks very much for having me. Appreciate it.
If you are listening or watching online, please do give us a like and a follow and a subscribe. It really does help. Until next time, take care.